Hey everybody, this is Jay with Mana Beast, also providing you guys a video on a deck tech or a deck list for a deck that I've been working on lately, and that is Ruthless Ginyu. I did make a post not too long ago saying that I was going to try to make some effort in building this deck, and a lot of us who have already been playing this game for some time, back in set 4, this deck was doing very well with the additional modifiers and being aggressive as Ginyu is, but with now set 7 that came out, we have a different assortment of cards to play with, and I wanted to take advantage of those cards to see if this deck could be as successful as it was back in set 4. Now this build, I will give you some fair warning, it is a very different, and it does require some variety of cards, which are, you know, ultra rares, to make this deck a bit more successful to achieve what it wants to accomplish. And ideally, this is a survival / MPPV deck. Strictly, this deck wants to win by survival. The MPPV concept is not necessarily an entirely crucial thing for it to have. It's more so of the fact that we want to try to get this deck to be as versatile as we can, by introducing that second win condition, the most powerful personality victory. So I'm going to start off with our setup. We have here the Red Ruthless Mastery, and the Red Ruthless Mastery has a when entering effect that says, use when entering combat, banish the top card of your discard pile. If you banish a styled card, your styled physical attacks this combat deal +2 stages of damage and gain hit, lower your opponent's anger 1 level. Now, this component was heavily abused back in set 4 with Ginyu. Now with this particular build, I'll let you know, the +2 stages, let's just say you're never going to get it. You're not going to run, actually I don't think there's a single physical attack in this deck that you're going to want to be playing. Mostly you're wanting to banish the top card of your discard pile so you can manipulate your discard pile to force certain cards on top of the discard pile. That way you can use those cards actively in combat. And it also has a power, reveal the styled card from your hand and place it at the bottom of your life deck. If you do, and the top card of your discard pile is an attack, you may play it. So most of what you'll be using this effect for is the banishing of manipulating your discard pile and revealing a card to use the card that's on top of your discard pile. That's a big thing about this deck in terms of strategic, or I should say in terms of strategy and what you're wanting to accomplish in the game. Now, starting off with your main personality here, level 1, Captain Ginyu, leader. Physical, my apologies, power, energy attack, costs 3 stages, damage 4 life card, search your life deck for an ally, place it into play 4 power stages above 0. Now it has a hit effect. If the effect of Ginyu level 1 hits, or the energy attack, it says choose an ally and play. That ally may make actions regardless of your MP's power stages this combat. Now that's a big plus. Ginyu is really well known for manipulating the game with allies that can be aggressive and passive simultaneously, and Ginyu has a lot of ways to accomplish this goal. And then we have here Captain Ginyu level 2. This is energy for costing 2 stages, 4 life cards. Search your discard pile for an ally, place it into play at 5 stages above 0. Raise your anger X, where X is the number of Ginyu force allies that are in play. Very good level 2, works really well given that there's going to be cases where your allies may not be in play. You may have them in the discard pile, and level 2 is a great way for you to bring them back to be able to do more shenanigans in the combat. Level 3, it says your Ginyu Force allies may make actions regardless of your MP power stages and cannot be discarded. All of your attacks deal +2 life cards of damage. Now discarded means they can't be critted away, that's essentially what that means, but they still can be banished, they still can be destroyed, effects such as that. And then level 4, Captain Ginyu, your allies may make actions regardless of your MP's power stages, which is nice, and they cannot be discarded. So that's all allies, not just Ginyu Force allies, which is rather nice. All of your attacks deal +X life cards of damage. X is the number of allies you have in play when you perform that attack. So awesome effect. You know, a lot of this you can see really ties to allies and being able to manipulate them in play and be aggressive. That's the core emphasis of Ginyu when it came in the past of building a deck. Now I'm going to show you exactly how this deck works, and I'm going to go in order of certain valued cards that make this deck unique in the way it works. So I'm going to start off by identifying these cards right here. Okay, so we have here Earth Ball 7, we have Red Retreat, and Blinding Energy Move. And I'm sure if, for those of you who play this game, you'll probably notice the similarity. These all end combat. Ending combat is very much needed in this deck, and you'll see why later on. But for those who are wanting to get into the game, let's go over a little bit of what these cards do. So Earth Ball 7 says, a parenthetical, once per game, you may play this card from your hand as an action to end combat. That's the main reason why we're playing this card. It's a great way to end combat, and the parenthetical text, you're never, or my apologies, the infinite effect is something you're not really going to be playing at all. And if you're up against an opponent who happens to be playing Earth Balls, or maybe even, you know, Namekian Balls, I could see them stealing this and, you know, them using it to play balls from their hand. That's great. But I'll tell you this, it's not going to be very common that they're going to do that, and you'll see exactly why when I show you the rest of the deck. Red Retreat, limit 2 per deck, banish after use, power, search your life deck for a drill, place it into play. You may banish a drill you control to end combat. We do run drills in this deck, and ending combat is very essential for what you're wanting to accomplish in the game. And then we have, last and not least, Blinding Energy Move. Limit 2 per deck, you must banish the top 2 cards of your deck to play the card. Energy attack 3 damage life cards at the end of the next action, this combat, end combat. So all of these have an obligation to end combat, and for a reason. You want to end the combat so that you can progressively be aggressive before your opponent gets a chance to do anything. And that kind of sounds like a very trolly way to win or trolly way to play, but that's just how this deck is successful, or tries to be successful in the gameplay. So now just showing you these cards, let's go into some of the other cards here, which these are more of the non-styled cards, non-combat cards from hand. These are more of cards that basically make the game progress throughout the gameplay. So, well, first thing people are going to notice, and I'm going to get a little response from this right here, is I only run 3 allies: Guldo, Jiece, and Nappa. I'm not running Birder. I'm not running Raccoon. I'm not running Frieza. I mean, there are so many allies that this deck can run. Now, there is an ally that I would love to play, but I don't feel like I have the room for it, or maybe I do, and maybe later on that he may be considered, but that's Android 13 ally, which is an energy for 3 life cards, costs 1 stage. But as of right now, I don't run him, and I can see him being fit into the deck, but I don't know. I would have to play the deck more interactively with players, and maybe there'll be adjustments in the future. But so I have 3 allies. Guldo has a power, so stops a physical or energy attack, and then deal +2 stages and +2 life for all damage this combat. So not only an Omni block, but a modifier as well once it blocks. Then we have Jiece, who does an energy attack for 5 life cards, and I can raise a player's anger 1 level, which is rather nice. And then you have Nappa that says setups cannot be used. Very control ally. A lot of people have always hated on Nappa because Nappa is just that powerful of an ally to make it so that nobody can play setups. Rather powerful. Now moving on to my other cards here. Now remember we went over Red Retreat, which these are my drill packages. I feel like originally I would always run between 4 and 5 drills, given that I have 2 Red Retreats, but because of certain cards that are in the deck, I feel like I can get away with running only 3, and I'll get into that a lot more. But we're also going to talk more about why these drills and what does Red Stylish Entrance do for us. So Red Stylish Entrance is an event, has 3 endurance, which is very appealing, and its parenthetical text says, if this card is banished from your discard pile when entering combat, draw a card. Well, remember, the Mastery says when you enter combat, you can banish the top card to add +2 stages, and your physicals gain hit, lower your opponent's anger 1. Well, you know, you may not be benefiting off of the modifier or the hit effect, but by banishing Red Stylish Entrance, you draw a card. That's not bad. And so that's really one of the biggest things about this card that I love. But it's much more important than just banishing it for a card. If you take a look at the power, it says use when entering combat. Search the top 5 cards of your discard pile for an attack card and place it on top of your discard pile. Allies with continuous powers lose all effects this turn. Now, there is multiple reasons why this card is needed. So for starters, being able to rearrange the top 5 cards before combat even starts allows you to force cards on top that you're going to use as your very first action. And there are cards that I'll get into, but one of those cards is Blinding Energy move that we just covered. So Red Stylish Entrance, being able to rearrange the top 5 of your discard pile while also shutting off allies with continuous effects, it allows us to shut off Nappa. So that way we can use cards like Visiting the Past, so that we can use cards like Red Relaxation. So the combo with mitigating Nappa's ability while also shutting off other allies such as Allied Roshi, Allied Ox King, those are allies that have, and as well as even guys like Gohan ally, you know, so being able to shut off those types of allies in combat to be able to progressively advance yourself in the game with a card like Red Stylish Entrance really like changes the game. So this card is by all means the bread and butter to help this deck out get to where it needs to be. Now going on to our drill package, we have Red Embarrassing Drill. 2 endurance, which is not bad. It says when one of your effects requires you to lower your anger, you may reduce that amount to 0. So the big thing about Red Embarrassing Drill, especially with Red Forward Stance Drill, as you can see, you can lower your anger 1 to stop a physical or energy attack for Red Forward Stance Drill. They actually work hand in hand, but on top of that, Red Embarrassing Drill also works for a lot of other effects. And being able to have a card that can manipulate a cost that can allow you to benefit off of an effect is amazing. Is amazing in itself. And last but not least, Hidden Power Drill. People are wondering why in the world would you want to run Hidden Power Drill? I'll explain what Hidden Power Drill does. When this drill enters play, all personalities to 5 stages above 0. Continuous effect. Personalities cannot be more than 5 stages above 0. When an ally power level is 0, it is banished. Well, Jay, I mean, God, why would you put that? Why would you put it in play? Well, there's actually a reason for that. And it all goes back to Red Retreat. So let's go back to Red Retreat real quick. So Red Retreat says, search your life deck for a drill and place it into play. You may banish a drill you control if you do end combat. This card is not restricted by style. Because a card like Hidden Power Drill is a freestyled card, it allows me to search for it, put it in play, which automatically presets all of my allies and my main personality to go to 5 stages above 0. So what am I using Hidden Power Drill for? I'm using it to gain stages. Actually, not just any stages, I'm gaining potentially, I have 3 allies, so that's potentially 20 stages, or no, I mean, yeah, 20 stages. If I were to be very proactive in getting all my allies to use all their stages. This card allows me, when it enters play, to reset those stages so that I can be as aggressive as I can be in the next combat. It's a really great trick that I've used in the past, and it even works better with this deck. So that goes with our drills. Now let's go in order of our setups. So over here we have our setups package, and I'm going to start going in order. Red Relaxation, it says banish after use, which is also very important. Banishing after use is very much necessary so that you can again not be inhibited on using having certain cards on top of the discard pile for the effects of the mastery. It says use when entering combat, use a critical damage effect. You could steal a Dragon Ball, lower anger, kill an ally. There's a lot of things you can do with this card, but most importantly, gain 2 stages. Hey, 2 stages. I like gaining stages. It helps me out a lot. And then it says draw the bottom card of your discard pile. I mean, hand advantage galore. We're talking about cards like Red Relaxation in synergy with cards like Red Stylish Entrance, so being able to manipulate it and then forcing a card, if you have enough cards in the discard pile, of course. That right there, you can see the combo potential of what you could potentially do. So the combo is there, and being able to take advantage of the combat that you enter into also allows you to be as effective as you need to be to claim victory on your opponent. We also have Red Premonition. Now this is a card that, I mean, everyone has had much love with, and it's all about the parenthetical text. When this card is revealed from your hand, you may banish it to search your life deck for a styled event and place it in your hand. Well, we have a lot of stuff going on with this, and here's why. Because you can banish it to search for a red retreat. You can banish it to search for a red stop, which is an omni block. That's banish after use and can allow you to search for drills. I'll show you what that card looks like later. This card allows you to set yourself up to want to end combat from the same combat that you just entered by playing a card that's at the top of your discard pile and also setting yourself up to get the card that you need to end combat. It's rather impressive as to what you can do with this card, and on top of all of this, it has a power that says lower your MP 1 level to advance or lower your opponent's MP 1 level. I mean, that's amazing. That's not just searching it for searching the event the events that you have in your deck, but also being able to lower your MP to stop your opponent from going up advancing levels or to win by MPPV. It's a great control card that I've loved adding into this deck. Okay. Now we have another card, Visiting the Past. I mean, this card, I feel like you can choose not to run it. I feel like in this deck you kind of have to, because it's all based on comboing off, and Visiting is a great card that does it. What I love most about this card, though, is most of the time when people put Visiting the Past in their deck, they're doing it because they think, well, it's an amazing card. Why question it? Why ask any questions? I actually took a little bit of thought extra into the card. You know, this is actually a card that I could even see myself using when I myself am entering combat. So the versatility I feel in this deck with Visiting is much more extensive. Now we have Time is Warrior's Tool, which is an omni block, stop physical, stop energy attacks, and then it stops all your opponent's attacks. I mean, why not run it? You know, it's a very good card. It's searchable by Visiting. You can set it up in your discard pile for red Relaxation. I mean, there's a lot of ways to abuse this card. And then, hey, take a look at the Red Stop. Red Stop was the card that we were talking about, right? Searching with Premonition, which was over here, and Premonition being able to search for Red Stop, which says, stops a physical or energy. You may lower your anger 1 if you do. Search your discard pile for a banished zone for a style drill and place it into play. Now, unfortunately, when you really think about it, these are our only two options. You either use Embarrassing Drill or Forward Stance Drill. I think either are good scenarios. If you're wanting to hold on to a Tandem Blast, maybe you prefer the Embarrassing Drill over the Forward Stance Drill. If you feel like you really want to, if you feel like you're in a little bit of a tight spot, maybe Forward Stance Drill would be a better call. So, something to kind of throw out there. And last but not least, as an event, we have Villainous Energy Sphere. It's an event that says, use when your opponent plays an event, cancel the effect of an event, and then your opponent destroys the top card of their life deck. So them milling a card is nice, but also stopping your opponent from using time, from using stare down, from using all sorts of events that could stop you from progressing is very key. Especially since now people are playing cards like Blue Defensive Effect, they're playing cards like Blue Farewells. There are so many cards now, and especially name cards like Cell's Style is another card. There's a lot, and Goku's Kaioken and Unleashed. There's a lot of cards that Sphere is very useful for, and I feel like in this deck 3 is fairly necessary because there's just so much manipulation you're doing that you want to stop controlling. You want to stop your opponent from controlling your setup, and that can impact what you're trying to accomplish. So 3 seemed a bit essential in my opinion. And I don't often run 3 spheres in decks. I'll just throw that out there right now. So that's another card that I wanted to go over. Now let's go over some energy attacks. Now, very first one I wanted to start off with is Allied Blitz. This is the card that makes this deck the way it is. If this card did not exist, this deck's not worth running. So Allied Blitz says, energy costing 1 stage. Whenever you perform an energy attack this combat, your opponent skips his or her next action this combat. Wow. Every time when I do an attack, not just any energy attack, all energy attacks, that includes even my level 1, my level 2 allied, my level 1 and my level 2 Ginyu, they both count as energy attacks, so therefore this also works hand in hand with them. Now the hit effect on top of the 3 life cards of damage and the 3 endurance, which is fairly good and reasonable, you have, if your MP is not a Saiyan, Then for the remainder of combat, your allies may make actions regardless of your MP's power stages. Well, that's just dandy, because I'm not a Saiyan. I'm Ginyu. Ginyu's not a Saiyan, so this works really, really well. I'm going to use it. I'm going to take advantage of this card. And I have the Mastery to make that happen. I have cards that manipulate the discard pile to make that happen. I have a lot of options. So Allied Blitz, thank you so much for allowing me to make a very cheeky deck that I can rather enjoy and hopefully not lose too many friends with it. All right, then I have next is the Red Departing Shot. Now, Red Departing Shot is just a generic, to me, a very generic energy attack. And it says, whenever a drill leaves play this turn, destroy the top card of your opponent's life deck. The nice thing is it's both your opponent's, so against an orange deck, this card does really well, but I preferably play this card because of the hit effect, gaining 2 anger. Because gaining 2 anger means advancing levels. Advancing levels means gaining stages. Gaining stages means using more energy attacks. You get the idea. And hey, take a look, a card that no one pretty much plays. Red Frenzied Blasts. Holy crap. It's an energy for 4 that just has hit, raise your anger 2. You'd be surprised how many energy attacks have hit, raise your anger 2. There's another card in set 1 that says if you have dealt critical damage, gain 2 anger, but I stuck with these two for obvious reasons. They're not situational based. But I mean, the fact that I get to play a deck where I get to play a card like Red Frenzied Blast and not have an issue with it whatsoever, to me, just made me more excited about building this deck. So, energy attacks that allow you to gain anger, and it doesn't end there. It ends also right here. We have Red Static Shot, and I'll even move this over here to tease with you on other cards. So, Red Static Shot, it's energy for 5 life cards. Your opponent cannot use Endurance. That's amazing. That's amazing. That allows you to even get ahead further with the game and hit raise your anger 2. So I effectively have 9 ways. Check this out. 9 ways to have an energy gain me 2 anger each. And that does not account for my ally Jiece, which also gains me an anger, and other cards that gain me anger. So we have a lot of stuff going on. Now let's take a look at the other cards here, and it looks like these are the last 2. Red Tandem Blast, energy for 1. You may lower your anger 2 or lower your MP 1 level. If you do either of them, your opponent cannot play non-styled cards as combat. Just fantastic. Flexibility, lowering your MP, being able to lower your anger 2 to make them stop playing non-styled cards. Amazing, amazing card. Amazing card. And in this deck, oh, you can take advantage of this card so much. So I find a lot of value in this card, as many of the red players out there would. But to add more value with energy attacks, we have here Red Explosion. Energy for 2 stages cost. Your opponent skips his or her next action in this combat. If the attack is stopped, your opponent loses 2 stages. You know, the 2 stages thing, not a big deal. 4 life cards, you know, raise your anger 1. The important thing is they're skipping their turn. Sometimes you're not going to have the Allied Blitz. Sometimes you want to enter combat, Red Explosion, and then you want to end combat. Sometimes that happens, and hell, that's okay, because when you really think about it, your opponent's going to draw 3 cards. In a way, you've made them lose 3 cards. If they don't have a block, then they're just going to have to deal with the Red Explosion, and then you just end combat and go from there. It's just awesome. And hit raise your anger 1. Again, fantastic, fantastic card. But we still have a last set of energy attacks to go through as far as what's in the deck, and we're almost done, guys. So we have here Red Heating Beams. I'm telling you, I've been looking forward to play Red Heating Beams, and again, just like Red Frenzy, I'm now playing a card that not very many people play, and I couldn't be more excited. So it's an energy, has 1 endurance, ironically, costs 1, 3 life cards. I can lower my anger 1 to draw a card. If I have a floating Allied Blitz in play and I Red Heating Beam, oh my god, talk about value. Value with doing an attack, drawing a card, having something that's just as useful, and being able to, you know, go off even further. And that also leads into my next card, Red Left Bolt. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with Red Left Bolt. You could set up Red Left Bolt to be an amazing, amazing card, but I feel like it's also not entirely necessary. But at the same time, you know, the damage is banished. It's 5 life cards, it's potential crit, and you get to add extra value to your hand with a card at the bottom. The issue I have with this card is sometimes I just feel like the 3 costing is a bit too much, but I feel like it's also a better option compared to other cards. So it's a card that I feel can be considered to be removed, but it's still a fairly decent card on its own. Okay. Let's go over some more cards here. Here we are. the last 3 energy attack cards. So we have here Red Training Burst. Now remember, we had an event that can manipulate our discard pile. Now we have an energy attack that can do it. Rearrange the top 5 cards of your discard pile. 4 life cards, hit your opponent, skips as their next action. Amazing. I mean, it does everything that Red Explosion does, but it's on a hit effect, and it allows you to manipulate the top 5 cards. So you can see a pattern here. If you combo Allied Blitz with these cards, and then Red Training Burst, which already gives you the skip, but allows you to manipulate the top card, you can essentially manipulate the top cards so that a card that can end combat can be placed to be used, such as Blinding Energy move. Whoa, that was a mouthful. And we got our last 2 cards right here. We have Red Hurl, energy costing 1, Raise Your Anger 1, 4 life cards, Rejuvenate 2. Red Hurl works great with Red Left Bolt. Think about it. You know what cards are going to be on top. If you play this deck just right, you can force the bottom card of your life deck to be a certain card so that you could reuse it with Red Left Bolt and be able to do so many things. And the fact that Red Hurl allows you to take a card in your discard pile that may not be an attack and to place it at the bottom, such as a Red Retreat, so that you can place it back into your hand and be able to end combat at the same time. Red Hurl just has so much value that it could add to your game when you're playing the deck. And the last card is Villainous Powerball. Now, Villainous Powerball does not really benefit off of your combo. What it is it's more of a card that, in my opinion, is the best that we have thus far, that allows you to protect yourself when you're in a jam. If you're in a very bad case scenario, Villainous Powerball is just that card that's perfect to have. Being able to prevent 4 stages is huge. And you may not be winning the combat, but you're at least gonna prevent some damage coming your way, which is also very, very big. And it's banish after use, which is even nicer because now you can just keep the top card of your discard pile the same, which is very important given that you're manipulating your discard pile to be able to do a lot more shenanigans in the combat. And this, all you Dragon Ball Z fans out there, is the deck for Ruthless Ginyu. I'm so glad that I was able to take some time to actually build it. I really love playing this game, and I feel like with different builds such as this, it really strives creativity. I think that this is my form of creativity with building a deck. I don't think that there's, I mean, I will gladly take the credit that I feel no one has ever built a deck like this, to my knowledge. And so building a deck like this, I feel like there always is room for improvement, but I can't necessarily think of, out of all the cards I've sifted through, what cards could be vital. I mean, if I were to think right now as to what could be essential in the deck, I think that Android 13 Ally would be something to consider. I can't think of any other attacks. I mean, there was Red Laser. There is a card. It's an energy for 4 stages, cost 4 stages, does 5 life cards. It says at your next action, search your life deck for a styled energy attack and place it on top of your discard pile. And as cool as that seems, the thing about it is, if that card had said an energy attack, it doesn't have to be styled, I would have put it in this deck right away. But the problem is it only does styled, which in my opinion kind of hurts the deck in terms of what you're trying to accomplish. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. In terms of how this deck works, you kind of get a gist of how everything synergizes with one another. The objective of the deck is for you to enter a combat that you're going to Allied Blitz into, combo off as many energy attacks as you can, potentially jump up levels, and then find a way to end the combat. You're basically creating a situation in which your opponent cannot interact with you. And that's going to be the annoying part for your opponent. There's going to be combats where your opponent will just not be able to do anything. Literally. Like, they can't do shit. And I'm going to say this now for those of you who want to try this deck out. This deck is not perfect. It definitely has holes, which in a way I guess is the only thing that's going to keep you from losing any of your friends. But most importantly, what I want to identify is consistency. This deck could be consistent. not all the time. So consistency is not really that great. From what I've observed, it can definitely be amazing, and you can combo it off, and if you know what you're doing and you're playing it correctly, you could do some amazing things. I want to identify one thing in particular. You don't have to use the loop always. As long as you win, that's all that matters. So what am I getting at? I'm getting at just if you don't have, maybe you have the Allied Blitz, for example. Let's say you're in maybe 5 rounds now, 5 combats, and you're well ahead of your opponent because you kept, maybe you've had 4 successful combats where you've entered combat, you've Allied Blitzed, and then you did a bunch of energy attacks, and you know, a variety of those damages were banished or endured because of endurance. I don't feel that you have to combo this strategy over and over and over again to win. At the end of the day, it just comes down to you being successful with getting into combats that your opponent can no longer interact with, and that's all that matters, in my opinion. I think that the deck can still do rather well, because what it does is, think of it this way: the deck forces your opponent to be defensive. But the thing is they have to be aggressive as well. So if they're just focusing on defenses, they're not going to be able to do anything. And in a way, it's putting them in an awkward position to have to respond accordingly. So I think that this is a deck that does involve a lot of thought processes. It involves very patient, decisive action, or decisive decision making, and it also forces people to have to think twice about like what cards to prepare for in the future. I could play this deck fairly well, but then again, I built the deck, so I know exactly what to watch out for. I think it also is very important for people to want to test it by yourself first, see where the combos come in, see what you would prefer waiting on. Sometimes you're going to be taking risks or chances on cards that you may not feel that you would need to at the time, but overall, this deck is quite interesting. I think that it can do fairly well. I don't know how it does in the competitive scene. I think that it does involve a lot more me testing it with players, because most of what I've done is self-tested to get to the build that I have right now. So I think that survival and MPPV are the main components of this deck. I think that it's a really fun deck. Tug of War is a deck, here's some cards that I should talk about that I'm a little worried of. So for starters, Tug of War, if Jiece is banished, Jiece is banished. There's nothing you can do there. I think that Jiece doesn't have to be in the deck. Let's be honest here. If you take advantage of Jiece in the very beginning, hell, I feel if you can get 2-3 combats in where Jiece actually performed an attack and then he's banished all of a sudden, I don't think that's a big deal, to be honest. That to me is not an issue. And I think that we have to really evaluate what cards are needing to stay in the long run. I think the big goal is to understand you are trying to be as aggressive as you can. You're trying to use as much fuel as you can, and if you start running out of fuel, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose. You just have to make sure that the fuel that you spent was enough for you to win. I think that's the main thing that I want to stress across for those people who want to invest into this deck. Now, unfortunately, this is not a very cheap deck. I mean, I am running 3 Allied Blitz. I mean, those are what, 100 a piece. And I'm running a hidden power drill, which is maybe $15 or $30 depending on where you get it, and I'm running 3 spheres. So I have 7 ultra rares in this deck to make it the way that it is right now, and I think those are the only expensive cards too. So yeah, I wasn't going for a cheap build. I was just going for a build that would work, and I think this build works. I think that it's very effective in what it can do. I do see that there are holes that are in the deck. And let's face it, there's going to be scenarios where your opponent is going to draw into their turn, and then they have the choice to enter combat. Well, if they enter combat, you're basically forced to have to deal with whatever it is that they're going to do. But there's something to keep in mind of. Even if they can do something on their turn, the one thing they have to keep in mind of is they have to make it count. If they go ahead and spend their first action doing something such as like using their mastery to gain anger, or using an effect from a setup that allows you to search for something else, like at that point they've wasted their first action. Because if you have the combo and they do something as stupid as that, then you're just going to make them pay for it. And so that's another thing I like about this deck. This deck puts them on the spot to have to really evaluate what is more important as a first action, because if you have the combo pieces in play, and by the way, you have a lot of draw potential here. I mean, Red Relaxation draws a card, banishing. The stylish entrance also draws you a card. Red Left Bolt allows you to get an extra card. Heating Beams also allows you to get a card. I mean, if they don't do something about it, this could go very much not in their favor. So they have to be very cautious. But this is the deck. I really hope that you guys like the deck itself, and give me your feedback. I think that the deck does rather well. I built the deck already, and I can't wait to play it for fun. And who knows, if I may end up making more tweaks to the deck, and I mentioned a couple of those as to what those tweaks were. So going back to that would be Android 13 Ally would actually not be a bad call. And I actually wouldn't mind running red. I can't even remember the card. It's the event that's in set 1 that says, you know, pay 5 stages and raise your anger 1, destroy all setups, drills, and allies in play. That's actually not a bad card to run, because you necessarily don't care if they're in play, and in actuality, if you were to destroy your allies specifically, and be able to keep them in the discard pile, and say you advance to level 2, who knows, you may, in between them leaving play and you doing damage, be able to get rid of a Tug of War, which can't target your allies because they're no longer in play. So these are a couple of ideas that I've had to manipulate the discard pile and to manipulate Allied Blitz to something much more than what it could be. Again, tell me your thoughts. I love doing this kind of stuff. I love deck building, and this is my unique build for a Ruthless Ginyu deck. Thanks so much, guys. You guys have a wonderful day, and I look forward to showing you the next deck here on Mana Beast.